Bones and Bobbins podcast is now on Patreon.
Huzzah!
Would you like access to bonus episodes, digital extras, exclusive merch, and more? You know you would. Join us over in the Curiosity Shop at patreon.com/Bones and Bobbins.
Your generous support helps make the show happen and will also earn you our very eternal gratitude and entry into our private Patreon-only Facebook group, which is a delight.
I do love our Facebook group, though. They're amazing.
Me too.
It is a great group. It is
so
super
good.
drama-free, all kinds of fun.
Yes.
Yeah. It's worth it for that alone. I'm just saying.
I agree. It is an excellent little community on the internet of people who just want to hang out and talk about creepy things and also share memes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I will send TikToks.
It's
of
true.
Weirdness.
She will, in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night when I can't sleep.
Which I cannot judge, given my vampire sleep schedule. In a dusty old shop on a forgotten old street, you'll find two witches with books 3 boxes deep. Next to rusty old needles and faded red thread, you'll come in for yarn, but leave with pigments instead. Whether poisons or patterns, we're always discreet, where creepy and crafty and morbidity meet. Welcome to the Bones and Bobbins podcast. Hello, morbid makers! We are your slightly creepy,
Mildly disconcerting,
somewhat sinister,
delightfully discomposed,
opaquely odd,
merrily morbid.
marvelously misanthropic hosts.
And this is Bones and Bobbins, Season 3, Episode 3, Stick a Pin in It!
I'm Haley from Red Handled Scissors and the Very Serious Crafts podcast, which, by the way, is about to start recording Season 5.
Yay!
Yeah.
So excited.
And I go by she and her.
And I am Natalie from Uber Dark Designs, an official true crime creative, and my pronouns are she and her.
Yay!
Yay! So how is you?
Oh my goodness, there are a lot of things happening in my life right now that I want to talk about and am not going to yet. It's not babies.
No babies.
I just have to make that very clear to anyone who has been listening to me bounce around recently. Not babies.
Not babies.
No, I am sorry to tell you.
But
So my birthday's tomorrow.
I was gonna say, yay! Happy birthday to you. Happy
I
birthday
turn 39, and I don't care about aging, so I'm pretty delighted about turning 39. I still don't have a gray hair yet, so
you are so
I may or
lucky.
may not make it to 40 without gray. We'll see.
I would be, so my hair is not, like, I don't have grays. I am going to be one of those women with stark white hair.
Cool.
Which I am completely down for. What I'm not down for is how that's going to happen, like just the growing that out process seems to me to just be a pain in the butt.
Yeah, well, I have a good friend who just has streaks of tinsel in her hair. And at some point, like, she has very, very dark hair. Mm-hmm. And so do I, but the one part of my genetic nonsense that is not just a disaster is probably my hair genes, which is kind of funny because I don't really care if I have gray hair, but it is just amusing to me that I don't, because I feel like I should.
I have a lot of hair. It's thick. It grows fast.
Yeah, you do have a lot of hair. I do not have a lot of hair.
I have not had a haircut since the pandemic began. And
yeah, you've got mermaid hair.
I've got long mermaid hair, and my bangs are like basically longer than your regular hair at this point. Like, it's banana pants. So at some point, I'm going to get sick of it and probably, like, I don't know, maybe just go bob and blunt bangs. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
Then we can be matchy-matchy.
Matchy-matchy.
Indeed. Can I tell you about something terrible that happened this week?
She says with a giggle. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, it was deeply terrible.
Though. Oh, no. Oh, I know what to do.
Uh-huh. So, I would just like to say that I have a really, really deep appreciation that, I mean, I had this before, but now I really, really have it for crime scene cleanup crews.
Yes.
Because I spent 5 straight hours cleaning up a dark, congealing, organic substance that splattered across walls and fabric and electronics.
A lot of electronics.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Anyway, I elbowed a protein shake that had 1 drink out of it. And I elbowed it good while sitting on my couch, and it hit the wall behind my couch and exploded all over. And the vast majority of it went directly into a giant surge protector where we don't have a TV, so we have a projector and a Mac Mini and then stereo receiver equipment, and I poured a protein shake in all of it. All of it.
It really, my first thought was crime scene when I saw it.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to blame my cats, but I definitely did it. I was lunging to stop Mr. Big Stuff from lunging at Jack because Mr. Big Stuff was hangry and Jack was being annoying.
Yeah.
But, oh man, I must have hit that thing just so perfectly. Oh, God. And it really did take 5 straight hours to get it even close. And protein shake. Don't. It's
like,
thick
ew,
and...
But at the same time, the thickness probably saved the electronics.
I think air drying saved the electronics. Well, actually, I don't know. None of it's been replugged in. So it's possible that I fried thousands of dollars worth of equipment. I don't know. But the speed with which I jumped up and I pulled out the couch because the surge protector was plugged into a hidden outlet behind the couch. Mm-hmm. So I'm fairly certain I just levitated and then floated midair and pulled out the couch so I could yank the surge protector out of the plug before anything started sparking. And I will say that surge protector did not freak out before I opened it, but it was just filled.
Oh.
It was awful. I don't recommend it.
Yeah, that does not sound fun.
There are videos on my Instagram stories. Maybe I will make a saved spot for them because I think they're probably gone at this point. If you want to see the destruction.
Yes. So I found out something interesting today I found out somebody died in our house
Cool.
of an overdose.
Or not?
It was an overdose, so.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, it is the Midwest.
Indeed.
That sucks.
Rural Midwest. So that sucks. And I was
That does suck.
Yeah. So I'm not sure where in. It was just like one of those passing things where like my youngest was talking to some kid on the bus and she was like, it was a newer student and she was like, oh, do you live over here? And then she's like, oh no, we live, over here. And she was like, well, why are you on her? Like, why does your mom pick you up over here then? And she's like, oh, my dad that used to be our house, the red one right there. And she was like, that's where we live. And she's like, yeah, he died from an overdose. And I was like, holy, like, super just blunt kid. So Youngest comes running in the door and she's like, Mom! And I was like, okay. So.
Fascinating.
Indeed. But in good news, I have new iMac.
Yes, you do.
I have not gotten my iPad Pro back from my eldest yet. But they're absolutely just thrilled to death with their new to them iPad.
Yeah.
And all the accoutrement that came with it.
That's exciting.
But they need to finish their current zine for their senior project. And then as soon as they're done with that, I get mine back. And it was really funny because they came in and they took a picture of, because I have it is a giant iPad Pro. It is the biggest. And then they put theirs on top. They're like, look at the difference. Which
That's
is
really funny.
But they wanted the smaller one because they don't like how big. And I'm like, well, it's not really for lugging around to school every day. So that makes sense.
That's for drawing on.
Right. Also, the knit-a-thon, the goal was $150,000 to raise, and we raised over $220,000.
That's amazing.
So,
congratulations.
Super fun. I think I already mentioned my next round. I cranked out a bunch of wire work. That will be
hands.
Yeah, like Sunday actually had to take a break because my fingers were like, because I was 12 hours straight on Saturday doing it. But
that's a lot for wire work.
It is, but I'm excited because they will be being worn on the runway for a Black designers fashion show at Paisley Park.
Oh, cool. The same person who used them last year?
Yeah, and
they were amazing last year.
They made freaking Italian Vogue.
I'm not surprised because everything about that show was gorgeous.
So I'm excited. And again, that's one of those things. So I've been this is a good thing. So I know that we talked about how we don't do New Year's resolutions and all that stuff, but there's things that we want to focus on. We talked about the energy we're bringing to 2020 too. And one of the things that
lady energy.
And one of the things that that I've been trying to get back to the last couple of years is my craftivism roots and really going into that more. And then I keep coming across, I've gotten on that area of TikTok of Black creators that are and men too, that are crocheting and knitting and talking about the huge lack of inclusivity.
Oh yeah.
And then I found a TikTok and this woman was perfect and she was like, I am sick of seeing all the not your grandma's crochet and this and she was like, why are crafts, and it's the whole why are crafts looked at as being less than art when they are art. I
wrote an essay on that at some point. Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I'm heading more in that direction, and I have things that I've been, but just doing things where I contribute and help a Black designer with their work and things like that. Just branching out, and that whole, yes, it is essentially a craft because I'm crocheting and knitting, but I'm doing it with a non-traditional medium, and it's being put into fashion which is not just like ready to wear, but actual runway, which then elevates it somehow to art, and how that whole
all art is made with
right
supplies.
Right. So it's like that whole, like, that is the whole visual of how
I think how you
art.
look at it
right.
is the defining factor. I don't think it is what you're doing. I think it's what you decide it is.
Yeah. So I like that because I like it feels like it's reinforcing like what I'm working towards, which is
That's
good.
Cool.
Because there was a couple days last week where like I was just overwhelmed as shit, didn't want to do anything, just muddled through the day, and now it feels like it's funny because I feel like we're both on the upswing.
I sure hope so.
Which is good, and yay! And if you're listening to this and you're not on an upswing, remember we are still in a panini, and even if we weren't, we're all humans, and it's okay to not be okay.
Our recent history has been decidedly not okay.
Right? I can't.
Yeah.
There's not going to be avocados. There's World War III brewing. Just.
I think World War III has simmered down a bit as of this evening. We shall see.
Thank fuck, because I'm trying not to even pay attention to it because I can only process so much at once.
Yeah, I think that we should not go down that trail. Let's shift back over.
Let's wrap it up with Super Bowl halftime show 2022.
Holy shit!
Yes.
Oh my
of
goodness.
The yes. My only complaint is that it was not longer.
Yeah. I mean, everyone wanted it to be longer.
Right.
Well, everyone who was Gen X or a Zennial.
Yeah.
Those two groups. Nobody else knew who these people were.
And that's their problem. My kids
entirely.
I have to admit my kids know who most of them were.
That's good.
They did not know Kendrick Lamar. And they didn't recognize 50 Cent. But they sure as hell know Mary J. Blige and Snoop and Dre and Eminem. And also a shout out to Snoop being told he couldn't wear a blue bandana, so he made his entire outfit a blue bandana. Dre being told to edit, Dre did not edit. Eminem being told he couldn't kneel, Eminem knelt. Like, just, it was perfectly, like, everything, it was so good. And also, Eminem has aged very well.
I still don't see it.
That's okay.
I don't, I just grew up too close.
Yeah.
And was too goth.
Yeah.
At that time.
Oh, Milwaukee had a goth prom this past weekend.
That's adorable.
And seeing the photos of all my friends going was super cute, and yay for them. So, there. We pulled it back from... we pulled it back.
From the abyss.
From the abyss.
You know who we should also pull back with us?
I don't know.
From the abyss?
Maybe our fantastic Curiosity Shop members?
Yes. That's exactly what I was thinking.
We would like to thank all of our fantastic Curiosity Shop members over on Patreon. This is where we generally give a totally normal and not at all creepy welcome to our newest members. And if you join us today, you'll get a shout out too.
It's true. We will... Wait, that was going to come out creepy. I was going to say we would digitally love you up, but that is just... Oh, whatever. I'm going to let it ride.
I'm keeping it.
Yeah, so... Beautiful, wonderful Patreon supporters, you're the best. And we would totally go explore hidden old graveyards in the woods with you.
Absolutely. And if you want in on the fun, not only will you get some really great surprises, and you'll also get a huge backlog of Patreon-only episodes.
It's true. I do believe we are recording number 43 today, and
44,
there are a couple of bonus ones in there, so I think there might be 45 or so episodes just waiting for you.
Yeah, indeed. And you will get to hear all kinds of stuff from just more of this, but also you'll hear a cat some more, some occasional kid.
Oh my goodness.
Some very raw stories.
Also true. But this time we're going to be talking about, we're doing our monthly auction oddities.
Yes.
And I found an estate sale entirely dedicated to dolls.
Oh! Yes.
Yeah.
And mine ties in to this week's episode, which you will figure out shortly.
It's true.
But join us. Check us out. If you don't want to stay, that's fine. We're not going to force you to stay. If you stick around for a while, have to jump out, jump back in, that's cool. We'd love you to stay forever, but at the same time, we know we're not for everyone. And, join us.
Don't tell them we're not for everyone. Good Lord.
I don't want to be like, join us.
We're being very Midwestern at this moment.
Yeah.
We're amazing, and we're really fun, and you should absolutely join the Patreon and have fun with us.
Yeah,
There.
we're extra
See?
fucking delightful over there.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And on that note,
Yes.
let me tell you about some entomology.
Yes.
All right, so entomology is, as you might know, old school insect collecting.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about herbariums and pressed flowers and seaweed collections already, but our dear creepy Victorians didn't stop there.
No, they did not.
No. They were also, among other things, collecting delicate, beautiful, creepy, crawly bugs.
Yes.
And Victorians didn't come up with the idea of collecting insects. I mean, as long as people have collected things or been interested in how things worked or science, like that has been a thing that has been going on. But they certainly brought the, as the kids say these days, aesthetics. Yeah, it's true. Which is not a, never mind. I'm gonna leave. Gonna leave it there. It's not an adjective, guys. Aesthetics are nouns. Something is not very aesthetic. All right, I'm done. All right, so when you imagine insect collections, you probably picture glass-topped wooden cases with the perfectly preserved specimens that are carefully pinned to a background. Everything's orderly and everything's labeled in beautiful but probably illegible cursive, and dramatic butterfly wings and iridescent beetles abound. So, you probably all know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
I'm fairly certain anyone who's ever seen anything that Wes Anderson has done probably has seen a collection of some variety.
Yes. I love the Wes Anderson aesthetic.
Yes.
I do.
So there are a lot of different ways to store and maintain these collections. Sometimes they are framed shadow box style and put on walls. Sometimes they're stored in drawers, fitted into cabinets. Sometimes they're part of an academic collection. Sometimes they're the work of an enthusiastic amateur or a habitual collector of strange and beautiful things. The artsy weird kid in your high school probably had at least one interesting bug preserved in a container on their dresser. And they probably thought that it was a metaphor for tragic beauty in a cruel world or something.
Yes.
And they were probably right. Sure. Yeah, I absolutely will both roll my eyes and agree. because I was for sure that kid, and I get to roll my eyes knowingly at myself, but also kind of agree with me. I am personally more of a flowers, plants, and weird rocks kind of collector, but I do also like articulated skeletons and also very much alive and thriving cats. I do seem to collect those as well. So I don't think I want to create my own specimen boards, but I'm certainly interested in looking at antique examples, especially in like library or university archives, and I'm not necessarily opposed to acquiring antique specimens. I don't tend to kill things, and generally speaking, people who are collecting specimens generally collect live specimens because that's the way to get the most complete specimen that you can.
That's true.
And I get that. So I do, however, have my own tiny insect collection, and it contains one specimen, which I think is a jewel scarab beetle.
Ooh.
Yeah, that my best friend picked up for me in an oddities shop in a small town in France. Because why go in half measures when you can fully embrace your eccentricity?
Yes.
I will say that she elected not to get me a wet specimen due to carry-on restrictions. But the fact that she even considered it is exactly why I love her. Because she is not necessarily that variety of strange. And that she was like, ooh, I'm in this old French town. There seems to be this shop filled with specimens. Better go in there and buy Haley a Christmas present. And she did.
That's perfect.
So, yes, and so I am pretty excited about someday casually mentioning that particular story because I like things with the background, you know?
Mm-hmm.
To my little nephew, when he at some point inevitably notices the pretty bug in the teeny tiny bell jar on his weird auntie's shelf. Because at some point, there's going to be, ooh, what is this shiny?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's mounted in this teeny tiny little bell jar, and it's beautiful. I mean, just beautiful. And it's definitely an antique, and I know absolutely nothing more about it because it came out of a weird oddities shop in a small town in France.
Which is like the best part of the story. Its journey to you is the best part of the story.
I agree. I definitely agree. So I have a single, very, very beautiful iridescent jewel scarab beetle. And that is the extent of my personal entomology collection as far as I can remember. I do not think I have anything else. Oh, you know what? That is not true. I have either dragonfly wings or cicada wings encased in stained glass.
Oh.
In one of my ceremonial daggers.
That's pretty
So.
cool. I have a dead Daddy Longlegs carcass up in the corner of the room, and the guy can't reach with the broom. That's the extent of my collection.
It happens. But I happen to also know that those wings were ethically collected from already dead creatures, because that happens to be one of the things that the creator who made them is passionate about.
Yes.
So,
which I like. I like the thought of taking a part of nature that is no longer alive and memorializing it in something pretty or functional or art.
yeah, and exoskeletons are way better at not deteriorating than soft tissues.
Yes.
So, yeah. So I had forgotten when I started doing this research that in my first book, Improper Cross Stitch, I had made an entomology themed pattern. Now, I didn't make this pattern that way on purpose. It started out being just a cute butterfly in a jar. And about half of the patterns in that book are cute things, and about half of the things in that book is swearing. I mean, it's
sassy.
Yeah, it goes in multiple directions. But for whatever reason, this particular pattern, the editor didn't think that it was edgy enough. And so it didn't necessarily make sense to me. I mean, it was true. Mm-hmm. It was a butterfly in a jar. But, so I added a sign behind it that says, Butterfly Mounting Class 2 p.m. and entitled the pattern That Escalated Quickly. So, should you feel inclined to have some entomology cross-stitch, Improper Cross-Stitch is here for you, as it turns out. But enough of touting my own damn book. Just a couple of additional anecdotes about entomology invading my life, because it has done that a surprisingly large number of times. And this is a warning. You are about to get smacked with some very early aughts Brooklyn hipster.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So, in the early 2000s, well, I'm mid-aughts, I guess, my Brooklyn kickball team. Yeah, that's right. There was a kickball league. Yeah. We were the Otters. Nice. And our cheer was Otter, Otter, Otter. Yeah, we had T-shirts. There was an entire league. We played every Sunday.
We had kickball leagues. I just think it's funny.
Yeah. So my kickball team went hike in, hike out, camping in the New Jersey water basin one weekend. I am not an outdoor cat. So imagine, if you will. But whatever, it was my kickball team, and we were going to be drunk, let's face it. So we had a site that was overlooking the New Jersey water basin, which is a protected waterway that is where New York City drinking water comes from. And you're not really supposed to get in it. We absolutely skinny dipped as a team. But whatever. We are creatures. Creatures hang out in water sometimes. So it's fine. Also, water processing plant. Whatever. And we didn't get arrested. So
that's
hooray. Yeah, we managed to miss all of the police boat rounds.
Nice.
Anyway, so while we were doing this hike, one of the members of my kickball team was an entomologist and took that opportunity to bring a bunch of equipment to acquire different beetle specimens.
Okay.
And he was super, super excited about all of the different varieties of what would look like to any of us a normal beetle, but there were so many different kinds and things he'd never seen before, and he would point out to us like what was interesting about each of these beetles. And it was kind of neat, because, whenever somebody is knowledgeable and enthusiastic about something, it's really easy to be interested in the thing that they are enthusiastic about. So I feel really great that I was not sharing a tent with him. Yep. But it was kind of cool to have our own personal insect scientist in the middle of the woods.
That is very cool.
Yeah. And I suppose, in an extension of that, there are two main types of collectors: academics and amateurs. And on the academic side, the entomology collection housed at the Smithsonian here in the U.S. contains 35 million plus specimens and is one of the largest collections in the world. And in the words of the Smithsonian, taken from their sort of entomology landing page, is, with over 35 million specimens, the Smithsonian Insect Collection is one of the largest entomological collections in the world. Specimens and their associated data are used as the basis for original collections-based research on the taxonomy, life history, geography, and evolutionary history of insects, arachnids, and myriapods. The collections are worldwide in scope and include large holdings of medically and agriculturally important species, making parts of the collection especially significant as sources of research to the evolutionary relationships and identification of insect pests. So, this collection is out of control.
That is huge.
Yeah. I linked to the Department of Entomology at the Smithsonian and found a video where you can take a virtual tour of the collection.
Oh, okay.
Which is very neat.
Yeah.
And there's definitely, I've linked both the entomology landing page and the YouTube video that is the virtual tour of the collections. But in addition to that, once you click through the public friendly facade, you can search the Department of Entomology collections.
Ooh.
And for real. So you can search the primary type specimens catalog, or search the specimen inventory, or search the species inventory, or the illustration archive. So it's just...
That's where I'm going to spend hours. I'm going to spend hours going through all that.
Oh, you would just get lost. And so I don't think that I could say it better than they do. So this is how they describe the actual scientific collection. The U.S. National Entomological Collection traces its origins in part to the acquisition of the U.S. Department of Agriculture collection of 138,000 specimens that was donated in 1885. These specimens became the foundation of one of the world's largest and most important accessible entomological collections, with over 33 million specimens taken care of by the combined staff of 3 government agencies: the Smithsonian Institution, the Systematic Entomology Laboratory, which is apparently Agricultural Research Service and the United States Department of Agriculture, and the Walter Reed Biosystematics Unit, which is also known as the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research.
Yes.
So, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so approximately 450,000 records are currently available in the online catalog, including genetic samples and the primary type, specimen, and species inventories. And so you can look at both images and data about published scientific illustrations and also the species that they're attached to.
It is,
which is
fascinating
cool
to me. Like, I love all of that, and I think that it's so easy for us humans to forget about how necessary insects are to any biodome, like anything. I mean, it's and they do so many different things. It's so cool, and it's got to be a lot harder to discover and hunt and search for, given the sheer tininess. Well, I mean, obviously, if you're like in Australia, they're going to be the size of your head because everything is down there. But, but like the tiny, it's hard to hunt down the tininess, you know, and to be able to look at like larvae and be like, that's what this is. Like, even I remember when I hate mosquitoes, them, but I think it's amazing I've seen them like grow in jars of water. Like, it just, the life cycle is amazing.
And I mean, that's why you have people who specialize. Like, nobody specializes in general entomology, as far as I know.
Oh,
because you couldn't. I mean, like, the guy on my kickball team specialized specifically in North American beetles, I think.
I could hang with beetles, or moths, or butterflies. I don't think I could handle spiders. Spiders don't scare me.
Nope.
But like, anything in the mosquito. I probably wouldn't be real good at the yellow stripey. Either I want to like stab you with my butt, or I'm just trying to pollinate this thing. Like, all of those, I probably wouldn't do all that great with.
Anything of a wasp variety, yeah. I could avoid. But yeah, so I really love that this data is available, and it actually says in the description, like, it gives recommendations for how you might search, and so you can restrict your research to specific scientific names or precise locations, or just within genetic samples, or just within primary type specimens. Like, there are so many different ways that you can sort the data, and it's available to you just right now. You could just go do that. And they say that the search results are limited up to 5,000 records, but if you need to retrieve a larger record set, that you can contact the Department of Entomology's Collection Information Manager. And, like, this is an actual scientific research tool, but it's also something that I can look at, or you can look at.
That's awesome. That's so awesome.
Yeah, and I just think that's really cool. Let's see. So at some point in the future, I might dive further into individual academics and the building of some of the more famous collections. But I sort of got pulled into different, like, literal collecting of specimen sources rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
So I am going to tell you a little bit about what you need to start a specimen collection of your own. Because, as it turns out, entomologists are really enthusiastic, especially academic entomologists. And the departments of entomology at large schools really want you to collect bugs.
I just think of the two guys in Silence of the Lambs.
Oh dear. I've never seen Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, really? Oh, I will have to send you just that clip.
Okay. I thought that when I decided to go down the how do you collect insects rabbit hole, that I would get like a beginner's guide or something amateur specific. But nope. UC Davis has done has done video guides for collecting insects, with each video being less than 90 seconds, and the entire video series in a playlist. And it starts with
amazing.
It starts with hand collecting.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what you think it is. Using an aspirator, which is, sucking things up or blowing things into. Ground collecting, aquatic collecting, using nets. There's an entire video on how to kill insects.
Oh, okay.
Which I decided not to read it. I already know what the answer is, but if you need to know what the answer is, go ahead. No thanks. There's a video on pinning, how to point mount, which is the thing that most of us think of when we think of
stick pins and
insect
foam
collections. Core. How to label things, how to spread them, how to store and display properly. Like, there is just this huge collection of very, very specific knowledge on exactly how to do every step of this, which is very, very cool, because this is like an academic institution telling you how to do it right.
Right, and in short, digestible chunks.
Yeah, and they want the public to be interested in that. So, they do say that many locations require permits for collecting insects.
Really? I did not know that.
Yes. I'm guessing that it's probably talking more like
nature reserve,
national parks and things like that. So it says to check with local authorities, park rangers, park managers before collecting specimens. And because insects sort of live everywhere all the time, they specifically tell you some of the best places to look for different kinds of insects. So under rocks and boards. And then it reminds you to replace the rock or board after you've looked. On the leaves of plants, and visiting flowers or fruit. At lights at night, in the water, especially if there are lots of plants there. And at various sources of bait, so, like flies attracting food, stuff like that. Or, wait, food attracting flies, not the other way around. That would be kind of funny. I'm just imagining, like, potato salad with wings following the fly. Yeah, so there's so much information on what you need. And then both UC Davis and then Texas A&M have very, very thorough information on the types of tools you need, and specific instructions on how to get the proper equipment and what that equipment is, which is very cool. So there's a whole list on the UC Davis site and on the Texas A&M site. And the Texas A&M site that I'm linking to is specifically Insects in the City. So
It sounds like it should be like some kids show. Insects in the City.
I don't think I realized that saying that out loud was really a Sex in the City joke.
Yeah.
So there we go. Having only seen one episode, I
That's all you
cannot
need.
comment.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I like that you can focus very specifically on insect activity in wild spaces and also insect activity in very, very deeply inhabited spaces. So I thought that was very interesting. And so if you are interested, or maybe you're a parent with kids who want to start getting a closer look at things, you can get like jars with magnifying lids built in. So like you don't have to keep anything if you don't want to. You can just catch things and get a closer look.
Actually, I think that Dollar Tree gets some of that stuff in. Not as that it's the most extensive or scientifically, but it's for
And it doesn't need to if
right.
you're just looking at it.
I remember they had like a whole little bug collection kind of thing. It kind of reminds me of what you get in Animal Crossing when you're collecting your bugs, like just a little net.
I have no idea. But I did, when I was a kid, have, I think Fisher-Price made it, and it was a bug collecting kit.
Ooh.
And it had, like, swing-out drawers with air hole perforations that you could put different specimens in, and it had a net clipped into the top, and then the back had all of these different tools that were like magnifying glasses and tweezers and like basically the entire list of things that
That's so fun.
all of the collection sites tell you. And yeah, my dad and I used to go out into one of the local probably state forest, I guess, in Michigan when I was a little kid, and I would collect rocks and minerals and caterpillars.
Nice. Oh, I love a good caterpillar.
Yeah. So it was fun. And I kind of had forgotten about that until just now, and now I kind of want to see if I can find that set just for nostalgia's sake.
That's very cool.
Yeah, in the show notes, I have linked to all of the database information for the Smithsonian and how to search the collections, and also the how-tos from UC Davis and the city how-tos from Texas A&M. And I also put a link to scarab beetles in case you would like to know what mine looks like, and I'll probably also put it on the Instagram.
I like scarab beetles. There's something about them that I like.
They're otherworldly.
Yeah.
A bug that is kind of metallic. What?
Kind of metallic, but at the same time they seem ancient in a way. Like,
I mean, and they've been in jewelry, and like
I think it's my whole Egyptian thing.
It is your whole Egyptian thing. I was gonna let it be, but yeah.
No. Mm-hmm. As I talked myself right into the whole, yeah.
Yes. So that is just an overview of entomology and how to get into it, if you want.
I love it. I love it, love it, love it. It's kind of funny because you did the how to get into, and I took the giant topic of taxidermy, and specifically narrowed it down to a type of, and then one person.
Cool.
So, I am.
But the one person you picked is a heavy hitter.
Yeah. Indeed. Like, I am ridiculously excited to talk about my favorite taxidermist, who is Walter Potter. Now, I'm going to preface this with the fact that I know that while he is my favorite, he is absolutely not considered a super skilled taxidermist by pretty much everyone. And that's fine.
But he's interesting.
Right. Also, if you're listening to this, odds are you are familiar with the correlation of, like, the fascination of killing, dissecting, etc. animals at a young age, and the correlation of that being a fairly big red flag for further potential serial killer tendencies. So I just want to remind you that this is Victorian times, where people ate mummies, and also he was known by all to be just an incredibly kind man, and none of the animals used in any of his pieces were killed for the purpose of being taxidermied. Okay. Now that's out of the way.
Very important.
Just, gotta lay that down. So Walter was born July 2nd, 1835 in Bramber, Sussex, England. The Potter family ran the White Lion Public House in Bramber. And not a lot is known about his early life, or pretty much just him in general, outside of what he did. He left school at the age of 14 to work at the White Lion for his family. And at 15, he began taxidermy as a hobby in the workshop above the stables. His first taxidermy project was an attempt to preserve his pet canary's body. And it
happens.
Was all kinds of poorly executed. But that did not deter Walter one bit. Walter told the story of how this led to bigger things for him to a correspondent from the Idler magazine in 1895. Well, after I'd done my canary, people encouraged me to persevere. If they saw any animal or bird they thought I would like, they'd bring it or send it to me. At last, I get the idea of putting a case of birds together to illustrate the history of Cock Robin. It took me all my spare time over 6 or 7 years. I used over 100 specimens of British birds, including, though not actually necessary to the story, the cuckoo, nightingale, goldfinch, hawfinch, bramblefinch, and buntings. I also threw in a few butterflies. The bull himself was... I threw in a few butterflies. So the bull himself was the most difficult of all. At last, I bought a model, as it was impossible to get a real bull, however small, into the case. When I had bought my model, it hadn't had any hair or skin. So I got a calf skin, cut the hair off, and stuck it on the model with glue. When I had finished my Cock Robin cage, I was living at the Castle Hotel here and exhibited in the Garden Baller. All the young ladies from school here came to see it, and one of them took off her hat and collected a few shillings from her companions.
Why?
From that time on...
Please don't kill me, sir.
Right? From that time, I gradually began to keep a collection. I never thought when I started to make a museum, but the thing gradually grew itself. Soon, I began to want more room. My father had a new tea shed put up in the garden, and so I used that as a showroom. And if you look, I have included a photo of... It's hard because it's small, because it's such a big thing, and then a little zoomed in thing. So, it was... again, he was 19, and this is, it all kind of clicked when his sister Jane showed him an illustrated book of nursery rhymes that had a lot of anthropomorphic, animals in it and stuff.
There's a lot going on.
There is a lot. So it included the well-known poem, The Dead and Burial of Cock Robin, and that prompted him to produce, which is his most famed diorama. True to the poem, there is a rook with a white collar and a prayer book, and that acts as the parson. A dove is the chief mourner, and the bull tolls the bell of Bamber Church painted in the background, making the churchyard the same as that in which Potter would eventually be buried himself. The whole scene, which included, as he said, over 100, most sources cite the number 98. Either way, a shit ton of British birds, and it's housed in a large glass display case with a triangular roof and buttons mounted on the front, each of which, when you push, lights up a verse of the poem.
Oh,
and that,
my.
Yeah, so that pretty much became the centerpiece of the museum. It went on display in the summer house in 1861 behind his parents' inn, and it was such a huge success that he started receiving commissions to create taxidermied animals for wealthy Victorians. And before long, he discovered that he could make a living via taxidermy and at the same time fund his passion for his more creative dioramas, for which he was to become famous.
I see.
Potter continued creating his dioramas and expanded into new premises, likely to have been in Bramber as well. And in 1880, Walter secured a specially constructed building, which soon had to be extended to include other unusual exhibits from the animal kingdom, such as a 4-legged chicken and a 2-headed lamb that personally gave me total Damien Hirst vibes when I first saw it. Which, interesting side note, I had to come back to this part because as I got deeper into my research, it turns out that when the museum closed and the items were put up for auction, a bid of £1 million was offered by Damien Hirst. I
feel unsurprised.
And for the entire collection, and had apparently been rejected by the auctioneers. And the owners of it sued Bonham's auction house, arguing that the offer should have been accepted, which in reality, it really should have, because not only would it have kept it together, but it actually would have received more than the auction itself received inevitably, which we will get to. But shortly after the auction, Hearst wrote The Guardian, citing some of Potter's limitations as a taxidermist, saying you can see he knew very little about anatomy and musculature because some of his taxidermy is terrible. There's a kingfisher that looks nothing like a kingfisher. Well, fuck you, Damien. But he did also show appreciation for the displays in his own Damien Hirst way. My own favorites, he said, are these tableaux. There's a kitten's wedding party with all these kittens dressed up in costumes, even wearing jewelry. The kittens don't much look like kittens, but that's not the point. There's a rat's drinking party, to which puts a different construction on Wind in the Willows, and a group of hamsters playing cricket. At the auction, or about the auction, Hearst said, I offered them $1 million to pay for the cost of the auctioneer's catalog just for them to take it off the market and keep the collection intact, but apparently the auction has to go ahead. It is a tragedy. And it is kind of a tragedy, but at the same time, Damien Hirst is kind of an ass. So as his museum expanded, Potter married a local girl, Anne Stringer Mazel, and they had 3 children, Walter, Annie, and Minnie. All thrived as the museum grew in size and popularity, coming to be known as Mr. Potter's Museum of Curiosities, and hailed as a world-famous example of Victorian whimsy.
All right, sure.
At the peak of its popularity, special coach trips were laid from Brighton, and the museum drew such large crowds that the village then had to have an extension built on the platform at Bramber Railway Station.
Huh.
Sadly, Walter suffered a stroke in 1914 and never quite fully recovered. He died in 1918 at the age of 83. He was buried in Barber Churchyard in the little village in West Sussex that he pretty much never left. His museum, which by that time contained about 10,000 specimens, was taken over by his daughter and grandson. The Victorian enthusiasm for stuffed animals, though, kind of started to wane in the museum's later days, and it came under, having to deflect claims of animal cruelty by displaying notices stating that all of the animals had died naturally, and including a sign that said, in any case, they were all over 100 years old.
That is very, very true.
The kitten wedding scene was the last created by Potter in 1890.
Oh boy.
And it was shown at the Victoria and Albert Museum in 2001 as part of the Victorian Vision exhibition. Now, I kind of just whipped through his life, which, you know, he was just known for being an extraordinarily nice man. People would bring their stuff to the pub or ship it to him. Had a lovely family. They had, you know, it was just, had he not been known for this, it would have just been like a delightfully normal British life. But now I'm going to dive into just the museum a little bit and some of its glorious contents.
Oh boy.
So, Potter created amazing scenes, of which were a rat's den being raided by local police rats.
That's amazing.
Right. A village school featuring 48 little rabbits busy writing on tiny little slates, while the kitten's tea party displayed feline etiquette and games of croquet, and 20 kittens attended a wedding wearing little morning suits or brocade dresses with a feline vicar and a white surplice. Potter's skills, like taxidermy skills themselves, may be considered mediocre, his attention to detail was definitely to be noted. Like, the kittens and the wedding scene all have frilly little knickers underneath their formal attire. So, like, they are fully dressed.
Somebody sewed tiny kitten knickers.
Yes.
Just saying.
Frilly ones at that. So,
I mean, if you're gonna sew
yeah,
underpants for kittens, I feel as though you damn well better make them frilly.
Right? Just so you can kind of get a sense of size, the kitten's tea party was housed in a 62 by 73 by 24 inch glass front cabinet and contained 17 taxidermy kittens with oversized glass eyes sitting around an elaborately laid table pouring tea and offering each other cake on tiny little china plates, while 20 other kittens enjoyed themselves to the side, some playing croquet, some watching the game underneath little parasols, and one riding a bike. I stuck photos in the little notes there.
Oh. Goodness.
In another...
The earrings on the kittens,
Seriously.
I feel, is a bit more than I need.
There's a lot. There's a lot in all of the things. In another tableau, there's 18 red squirrels playing cards, gambling, smoking, and drinking in their little Victorian clubhouse. And there are some that have movement when the buttons are pressed, including a monkey that smokes. It's cussing delightful. I mean... So...
Does it actually smoke, or does it just make motion?
It just makes motion. Rather than go...
I mean, you never know.
Right. So rather than going into detail on, like, each one, I've included a couple of really well done photo galleries for you to take a look at in the show notes, and I highly recommend checking out the 20-minute documentary that I included as well. It's free on YouTube. It is actually by the author of the book on him, and I've linked to all of that stuff. And includes, like, between him and two other people, like, a big chunk of the collection. And it's interesting. So beside his taxidermied scenes, though, Potter's collection did contain, like, numerous other natural curiosities, like horns, skulls, teeth, mounted fish, and pickled specimens. And also, like, various human artifacts, like, from, like, a array of countries, like shoes, pottery, ivory bracelets, and a pair of Bali puppets in the form of a winged antelope and a dragon, all of which were just kind of lovingly sent to him. His collection of avian subjects were particularly impressive, both in the fact that they seem to be the best taxidermied by professional opinions, but just a massive size. So he had merlins, peacocks, a peregrine falcon, blue tits, great tits, that's a lot of tits, great tits, and a lesser spotted woodpeckers, partridges, herons, a pink-footed
Thought you were
goose.
going to say lesser tits because,
Right?
I mean, you had great tits. You've got to have
Not so great
slightly less great tits.
a pink-footed goose, canaries, albatrosses in flight, golden eagles, golden plovers, a scarlet ibis, a green woodpecker, Australian songbirds, magpies and owls, an Alexandrian parakeet, a kookaburra, and a penguin, just to name a few.
Wow.
Potter also prepared all manners of beasts, from weasels, polecats, and foxes to buffalo, tigers, and bears, as well as a platypus, the snout of a crocodile, and a rare taxidermied snow leopard in a seating position. He also created a monkey riding a goat, and it's my favorite.
But, okay. I just learned about pygmy marmosets.
Oh, nice.
And so now all I can think about is like tiny finger monkeys
Oh, yep. That's
riding anything.
yeah. So this is another thing that I find endearing that is probably not something most normal people would find endearing. But he provided a home for all the freakish animals that were born and obviously genetic deformities and didn't make it. But he gave them a home and a life beyond, which I'm sure seems weird to other people to think that that's kind of great. But I think it makes my heart happy that they, So I already mentioned the two-faced lamb, which he actually really did a good job on that one. Walter's collection also included a pickled Siamese pig in a jar, several ducks with more legs, tails, and eyes that I could count. Same with piglets and kittens. There's a two-headed cat. There's a cat that has two bodies but one head. A multi-headed calf. Again, Damien Hirst vibes. And a rabbit that had multiple heads. A two-faced puppy. And a lamb that has 7 legs and 2 bodies.
Wow, that lamb was busy.
Right? The following account of Potter's museum is taken from Animal Fantasy, the Taxidermist of Bramber by Derek Hudson, published in Saturday Book number 13 in 1953.
Saturday Book?
Yes, just called
That's
the Saturday
adorable.
Book. The first impression of the interior of the museum is a glorious Victorian jumble of odds and ends. Stuffed birds and animals abound, including a number of freaks. There is even an enormous Koipu rat, 40 inches long, which was shot on the bank of the River Adour near Bramber. As it is native of South America, the supposition is that it disembarked from a boat carrying timber at Shoreham and was exploring the neighborhood. An alarming apparition! But I soon forgot the rat in the contemplation of some old musical instruments, a length of telephone cable, an albatross, a Siamese war saddle, butterflies, beetles, boomerangs, the front foot of an Indian elephant made into a waste paper basket, and 12 engravings of The Wandering Jew by Gustave Doré. As the eye accustomed itself to the rich, inconsequential mixture, the major works of Walter Potter, about a dozen of them in their showcases, gradually detached themselves from their surroundings. I became aware of a whole new world of fantasy in which kittens played croquet with fastidious enjoyment, squirrels gravely drank wine and ate nuts, and rabbits frowned over their slates in the village school.
My goodness.
The museum closed in 1970s. And after being moved to Brighton and then Arundel, it was finally sold in 1984 to the owners of Jamaica Inn, Bolventor, Cornwall, where it attracted more than 30,000 visitors each year. The death of their taxidermist and economic considerations sapped the venture of its viability, and when a buyer to maintain the collection intact did not come forward, but yet it did with Damien Hirst. It was auctioned by Bonhams Auction House in 2003. In total, it realized over £500,000, which is £752,340 in today's money, which translates to pretty much a little over $1 million. So again, they would have gotten more money had they taken Damien Hirst's bid. So I don't know. The kitten's wedding was sold for...
I think somebody just didn't like Damien Hirst.
I mean, it's fair enough. The kitten's wedding was sold for $21,150, and the death and burial of Cock Robin was the highest selling item of the sale, raising £23,500. The white...
That's a lot for bad taxidermy.
But it's more than about the taxidermy.
Oh, I know they are. They are marvels.
The White Lion Pub, home of Potter's collection, has now been renamed the Castle Hotel. And another interesting note as I wrap this up is that people often ask if Beatrix Potter was related to Walter. Because if you look at her illustrations, there's a lot of similarity in the work that he's done. While there is no proof that she did, Beatrix, who was born July 28th, 1866, and died December 22nd, 1943, could have very well taken a train to visit Walter Potter's original museum in Bramber, which means Beatrix, who published her first book, The Tale of Peter Rabbit, in 1902, might have been directly influenced by Walter Potter's works from a visit to his museum, or she could have simply picked up the popularity of anthropomorphic taxidermy in the Victorian society at the time. I like to think that he had that impression on somebody else, and it carries forward.
Yeah, me too.
So that is a very quick jaunt, trying to be as delicate as possible.
You were very delicate. But also, these are truly ridiculous.
They are.
Pieces of art.
They are. I will be the first to admit, they are ridiculous. And initially, and again, it's one of those things where it's like, it's hard to look at because, I mean, I collect cats as well. And the thought of kittens, it's sad, but at the same time, those kittens were probably stillborn, and now they have a life and they've lived on, and a piece of crazy pants artwork done by some little dude that led a quiet life in England.
I mean, good for him. Good for him. It is pretty fascinating.
I think so. I also find it fascinating that his work seems to be directly opposite of who he kind of was. Like, he looks like this big old grandpa, like, jolly dude, super nice guy, like, just kind of quiet and reserved and not super, and then, he creates these things. So I love that juxtaposition of art versus artist in this case.
Yeah, I mean, several of his pieces, I think including the kitten wedding one, were at the Morbid Anatomy Museum at some point.
Ooh.
Fairly recently, near me. And I didn't get to see them, but they had, because I don't leave my apartment, but they had a bunch of different posts about it on social media and stuff, and they are fascinating. You could look at them and just continue seeing new things for a very long time.
Absolutely. And he, from what I've read, he kept, like, a lot of these animals came with stories, especially, like the monkeys, who are clearly not native to England. So he knows what happened to them, and he knows, like, the story behind them, and I like that. You know, there's a sense of respect in there, even though at first glance you might not expect that there is. But
yeah, I mean, there's just a lot going on.
There is a lot going on. There is indeed.
It's true. But yeah, definitely go, if you have not seen them, go look. Because, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whew. So, I think, speaking of all this death, that it just might bring us to
the weekly worst way to die. Discordant as always.
Yes, indeed.
So what's yours?
Mine is accidentally falling out of a boat and being washed ashore only to be slaughtered by natives that have never seen someone like me before and then end up taxidermied in a manner I wouldn't approve of. Like, croquet is okay, but anything Republican related, not so much.
All right. I feel like if you are being washed ashore someplace that would not recognize AU, they probably also would not recognize a Republican Party.
Probably, but you never know.
So you're probably safe at least there.
I just keep thinking of that rat.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I can go along with you on that. I would not like to die under glass.
Oh, no, because he would suffocate.
In any way that you might decide to imagine that, I would not like to. Thanks.
Yeah, no, there's a couple of ways that could happen, none of which are pleasant, and I can totally... That's a nope.
Yeah, just not here for it.
Yeah.
No.
So, do you want to be spooky, internet friends?
Yes.
We are Bones and Bobbins on all of the social medias. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, TikTok, Pinterest, all of the places. Or you can just hit us up at bonesandbobbins.com.
Yes. And don't forget, while you're doing that, to rate and review this podcast because it pleases the internet gremlins. And that's how we show up in recommendations so the other morbid souls can find us. And someone did post a review saying how they would not like to die over this past week. No, now I gotta look for it. So, hold on.
Bring forth the morbid souls!
If I... There's just so much happening. And by so much, I mean I'm not looking at the right page. It's fine. Fine. Oh, here it is. Okay. It says, and this is on the Valentine's You Want and... Oh, wait. No, that's the title of the review. The review is Season 3, Episode 2, Valentine's You Want and Don't Want. And it's a 5-star review from Hippie Rabbit Fish.
Aww.
And it says, Haley and Natalie take us on journeys through interesting topics all the time and always relevant to the time. Botched anesthesia for any sort of procedure is an unexpected way to die, which makes it one of the worst ways to die because no one is really quite prepared for it to happen. So,
indeed.
There we go.
That is an excellent one, Hippie Rabbit Fish. And thank you for the 5 stars.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate it.
We like you 5 times more than other people.
I do believe this is not the first review that they have left. So
we will take all of the reviews.
Exactly. So many hard eyes at you.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And on that note, let us leave you with some advice that you should never forget.
Never. Never, ever.
Lock your doors.
And don't run with scissors.
Each episode of the Bones and Bobbins podcast is written and researched by Haley Pierson-Cox and Natalie Hoyce. Our music was composed by Loyalty Freak Music. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Bones and Bobbins. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, follow us on Spotify, or check us out wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts so you won't miss a minute of our strange and creepy content.